I absolutely love cooking, and I love teaching people how to cook. I've been doing it for 30 years or so at this stage. And in the modern world we live in, the kitchen is still the heart of the home. The kitchen table is the family boardroom, if you like, and of course the kitchen table is where we all gather to eat. In this program, I would like to bring the cooking back into the kitchen by teaching you many valuable techniques. When you master a technique in the kitchen, it opens up all sorts of possibilities for you that you can use throughout the year. And many times I've witnessed the amazement on the face of a cook and their delight when they're finally being cajoled into reading a recipe, weighing the ingredients, heating and timing the ingredients as the recipe says, and they have produced a dish that has completely eluded them previously. So my approach is pretty simple, not new. Use the best ingredients you can get organized, follow the recipe, and you're pretty much guaranteed a great result. Sometimes when I'm cooking a spiced chicken dish, I want a no-holds-barred, hot, fiery sauce. On another occasion, like here, I want a more fragrant, aromatic, gentler spice. So this casserole roast chicken with Indian spices will be just a gentle mixture of spices. There will be a little chili in the dish, but that will be just a sort of a fragrant heat around the edge rather than a really fiery heat that's going to make you perspire. This technique, casserole roasting, is a really important technique and one you can use with different birds. I'm using chicken today. Another day you might use a pheasant or you might use a guinea fowl. You can even do it with a turkey, but you need a very big saucepan in that case. And the saucepan is very important. So we're using a heavy casserole with a tight-fitting lid and we're roasting. So it's really putting the ingredient dry into the casserole, putting a lid on, and then we're going to put it into the oven. And what happens then is that any juice that comes out of the bird gets trapped in the saucepan, and that is the basis for the sauce. So the casserole is on heating, and I've just dabbed the chicken dry, and that will help the butter that I'm going to spread onto the skin of the chicken just to go on more easily. So if your butter is soft, it just spreads on nice and easily, which is good because you end up using less butter. The reason I put the butter on its own first is because if I introduce the spices to the butter and to the heat at this stage, they might burn while I'm trying to brown the chicken. So that's the reason why the spices will come a little bit later. Pop it into the saucepan to brown. Now, don't just plonk it in. What you do is take the chicken and holding it sort of there like that, just test to see if the pan is hot. And I know it is. So now I'm safe to drop the chicken in breast side down to start to brown. If the butter hadn't sizzled, it would have meant that the pot wasn't hot enough and the chicken skin would be much more likely to burn. What's happening here is that the juices are coming to the surface of the skin and the natural sugar in the juices is starting to caramelize. So let's have a look and see what's happening. Just pick it up like that and have a little look. You see it's starting to get lovely golden there, but we wanted to get a bit more golden all over. So the blend of spices for this particular dish is quite a gentle blend. I'm going to use some coriander, very easily accessible, lovely little spice. And then I'm also going to use some cumin seed. So that's that long, slender seed. Again, it's got thousands of different uses. We're going to use a little turmeric, and that will add a little gentle hint of color to the sauce. And also it has its own specific flavor. And the other spice I'm going to use a little chili powder. Now, as you can see, the turmeric and the chili, they come pre-ground. But I like to grind the cumin and the coriander, and most whole spices I will grind here in the kitchen. It is really easy to do. If you're worried about grinding spices and you think that's beyond you, I promise you it isn't. Because if you've ever picked up a pepper mill and just ground the pepper out of it, well, let's face it, you've been grinding fresh spices every time you do that. Sometimes before we grind them, we roast them a little bit to release the essential oils from the spices. And when these come out, I'm going to grind these in a pestle and mortar. Now, pestle and mortar may seem a bit sort of cave-like to you, but you'll see how easily the whole thing happens in a pestle and mortar. So I can now smell the aroma of the coriander starting to roast. They've gone just slightly toasted looking like that. So they go in there. I should have a little look at the chicken as well at this stage. That's beautifully browned like that. You won't get it to brown absolutely all over. That's fine. You don't have to. Just put a good start like that, a good color to the start of the recipe will give you terrific flavor. See a little haze of smoke coming up from the cumin. So while they're still hot in the pestle and mortar or using a coffee grinder, spice grinder, just pound them like that. And you will notice when you're standing over it, the aroma that lifts out from them is absolutely fantastic, a sort of a lemony, spicy flavour, and you're immediately transported from Ireland to somewhere much more exotic. So you can see it doesn't take very long for it to break down into a powder. And already I've got a sort of a coarse-ish sort of powder like that, but in this recipe I don't really want it absolutely fine. Okay, I need to mix the cumin and the coriander with the rest of my spices. So tip those into a bowl. So I'm going to add my remaining butter. So in total, not very much butter in this recipe, but it will add flavour. So I'm going to add in my turmeric. This is my finely ground turmeric, and a little pinch of chili powder. And mix that around, and we get this mildly spiced butter. So I'm going to smear some of the spice paste just onto the skin, like that. So that's going on there very nicely. Another day you could be using a pheasant here, or a guinea fowl, which would be a real treat. Or if you wanted a spicy Christmas, you could use a turkey here instead. But again, as I said, you would need a very big saucepan for that. Now, a few more things need to go into that pot before we transfer it into the oven. A sprinkle of salt on the surface like that. I'm also going to put a little sprinkle of black pepper, even though we have some spices in there already. Okay, now, we're doing quite nicely there in terms of the spices, but we've got a couple more ingredients to go in. We've got our chilies, and we're also going to put in a little lemon juice. So I'm going to use green chilies today, and I'm going to put them in whole into the recipe, because we have the option then of picking them out. So if there's somebody at the table who likes a hot chili, they can have that. And if somebody who doesn't like the heat of a chili, they just push them to one side, or you just don't put them on their plate. So you literally just plonk those in around the chicken like that, whole. And the other thing we need here is a little bit of lemon juice. So squeeze a little on. And you can imagine the way cumin, lemon, coriander, turmeric, and chili, the way all those flavors will work together. The other thing I'm going to put on top of this is a greaseproof paper lid, because this is all about steam. But it does give an extra layer of insulation. Looks a bit old-fashioned. I promise you, it works. With lid on top, nice tight-fitting lid. So that's ready to go into the oven now. We're going to cook it for about 1 hour and 20 minutes. And then we'll take it out, have a look at it, and I'll show you how to test to see that the chicken is completely cooked. With chicken, there's no grey area. It must be cooked through. The chicken has been cooking for about 1 hour and 20 minutes in the covered casserole in the oven. So let's just look and see if it's cooked. At this stage, it should be really. So the lid should have kept lots of steam in there, as you see it has. And the paper will have helped with that insulation. Now, to test to see if the chicken is cooked, you can test it by getting some of the cooking juices onto the spoon, and they should look clear. In other words, no trace of pink or red on them. So go in again with your skewer. Or you could use, if you don't have a skewer, you could use a small little knife and get some of the chicken juices. And you see the way, no trace of pink. They're clear. And that, now I'm completely confident that the chicken is cooked. So now I can proceed with the sauce. Okay, those go to one side. I'm going to take the chicken out of the casserole, and I'm going to put the chicken back into the oven, turned down to sort of 50, 80 degrees just to keep warm. And the chicken will benefit from being allowed to rest for at least 15 minutes before we carve it, because the juices in the chicken will get a chance to relax and just distribute themselves completely evenly. So it should carve really, really nicely for us. So now in my casserole, what I have are these cooking juices. So remember, this went into a dry casserole, and look at all the juice you have. That is pure flavor. Nothing could have created that except the chicken. So I'm going to strain those. You could just spoon off that fat if you want to. And I always save that fat, so I'd put it into a jam jar, put a lid on, let it get cold, and put it in the fridge, and it will solidify or semi-solidify. Then next week or the week after, I could use that for roasting parsnips or for roasting potatoes when I wanted a slightly spiced flavour. But don't throw that fat out, because it's a precious commodity. And if you've bought a free-range or an organic chicken, it means you're getting an extra bit of value for the premium price that you have paid for that particular ingredient. The other way of removing the fat is with one of these things, which is a maigre. And this is specifically for the purpose of taking the fat or the oil off the top of the liquid. If you don't have one of these, you just spoon off the fat. But it's a very useful bit of kit. Sort of thing you only really have to buy once during your cooking life. See the way again? The fat is just rising to the surface. So we pour out this end where the funnel is holding the fat back. And keep pouring until you see the fat starting to dribble through, and then stop. Okay, to finish the sauce, we have those delicious cooking juices. I'm going to add in my cream, just like that. And we're going to whisk that, and then just let it thicken itself. I only want it very, very lightly thickened. The other final addition that we're going to add is a little bit of freshly chopped coriander leaf. This doesn't have to be an Olympian pursuit. It's about just taking your time, backwards and forwards, like that, and then gathering up the herbs each time into a little pile like that, or every now and then. At this stage, I'm pretty much happy to put in my chopped coriander, because that will infuse into the sauce during the last few minutes of cooking. We've been keeping the chicken warm in the oven, and I've got a carving dish ready to go. You could, of course, carve it straight onto plates if you want to, but I'm just going to carve it all onto one dish. What you'll find probably as well at this stage is that some juices will have gathered in the bottom of the plate. So I like to just hot dribble those in there, and they add a little bit of extra flavor to the sauce. You don't want to miss any of that. To carve the chicken, I'm going to use a filleting knife. When you're carving, you always start in the same place by removing the legs. So the leg consists of the drumstick and the thigh. So cut between the skin there, like that, and cut down towards the bottom of the chicken. So if you hit the bone like that, which I'm just hitting, don't keep sawing, you'll just blunt your knife. Move your knife a little bit to the right or the left. And the other thing to do is just push the leg out like that. And then you'll be able to see right in there. And that's the ball which is sitting in the socket. So you should never have to cut through the bone. The knife should slide between where the two bones meet. Now, again, I like to separate, as I said, the drumstick from the thigh. So the drumstick, the bone is going in this direction, the thigh bone is there, so they're meeting approximately here. So put in your knife in approximately where you think they're going to meet. Next thing I like to do is just to remove the wing bone with a little slice of breast. Keep carving the breast, neither too thickly nor too thinly. I'm using, as you can see, a little tongs to hold the chicken. You can use a carving fork or a large table fork, whatever you feel comfortable with. On this dish now, we've got 2 portions for people who just like the white meat or the breast meat, and then 4 portions for somebody who likes a little bit of the brown and the white. I love the brown meat myself, or maybe even ideally a little bit of both. The carcass I'll keep to make a stock. I could make the stock today, or I could put the carcass into the fridge and leave it there for maybe 2 days and then make a stock, or I could freeze the cooked carcass. In a couple of weeks' time, I could take it out and make a stock out of that. Now, I'm going to grab my ladle and also a couple of some more tasting spoons, just one final taste, but I was happy with the flavour a few moments ago. Large spoon or a ladle, I find the ladle convenient. And then don't feel that you have to put every little bit of sauce on the dish. You could serve some of the sauce separately if you want, in a little sauce boat. That looks about perfect. All I need to do to finish that, you don't have to, but I'm going to put a little bit of fresh coriander leaf on, just to freshen up the appearance. If your coriander happens to have some little flowers attached like that, well, all the better, because it's super pretty and they're also super delicious to eat. One last little bit of coriander, just tucking in there, and this will be really delicious with the pilaf rice. Rice is the perfect accompaniment to go with our casserole roast chicken with Indian spices. And I know cooking rice can be a cause of concern for some cooks, and I hope that this particular recipe called a pilaf rice, which is a very specific technique, will help you to get over that problem. As usual, I like to get myself organized before I start, and I weigh out all of my ingredients if possible. I've got a little bit of a shallot, or you can use onion. Shallots are related to onions, a member of the allium family, and they're milder, not just quite as abrasive as an onion. You can use an onion here, but the shallot is my preference. Now, the rice is very important. This is basmati rice from India, and it's a long grain rice, wonderful flavor. I've also got some chicken stock. The chicken stock could be replaced with vegetable stock or water or fish stock if you want. So, a heavy bottom saucepan, very important. So I'm going to put that on a gentle heat there to start heating. And while that's heating, I'm going to chop my shallot. And I didn't cut all of the root off the bottom, so it's held together there with a little bit of the root. So we start cutting towards the root, but not through it. In other words, My little slices here are hinged at the base. At this point then, I like to cut it in half, like that. Then you cut in the opposite direction, like that, towards the root, but not through it. And then your final cut is the opposite direction again. So I've just been cutting that direction. Now I cut in the opposite direction, and I get a nice little dice of shallot. So I must melt my butter. So pop it in there. Again, as I said, it could be olive oil. Small amount of butter, but enough to flavor the rice. You don't often think in terms, perhaps, of having rice and butter in the same place, but they are really delicious together. Now my butter is foaming. That's very important. So don't put a knob of cold butter into the pan and the shallots and then turn on the heat. They're much more likely to stick. So let the butter foam. Turn them in the fat so they're coated, and then I'm going to cover them and let those sweat there for a couple of moments. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our rice and turn it gently. Whenever you're cooking with rice, you should always handle it very gently, because if you break the grains of rice, you're encouraging the starch to come out, and that is one of the reasons why you sometimes end up with sticky rice. Okay, let's see what's happening. So we're taking the rawness off of our shallot, and they're just lightly sweated down there. So I'm going to turn up my heat just a little, because I have been cooking it on a low heat, like that, and now I'm turning it up a little to add in the rice. So the rice goes in, and we turn the rice. The great thing about measuring your ingredients and taking that 30 seconds, perhaps 1 minute to do that, is that you give yourself every possible chance of success. You take the element of doubt out of the equation, and also, if you've measured your ingredients and something goes wrong, you can look back at your recipe with certainty that at least you measured your ingredients properly. And then invariably, you'll find the place where perhaps you didn't read the method properly. So it's really worth just getting everything weighed out. See the way the rice grains are just starting to just blanch slightly. In other words, there are little flecks of white where it's slightly blanched, and there's the original sort of translucent, if you like, color of the rice. I'm adding in my measured quantity of chicken stock. So it's looking pretty dull at this stage, and you might be looking into the saucepan thinking nothing as good is ever going to come of that, but it will. Because as this comes to a simmer and then simmers for 15 minutes or so, the rice absorbs the stock. So you end up with lovely, loose, fluffy grains of rice at the end. While it's cooking, I'm going to extract the seeds from a pomegranate. We're going to sprinkle the grains over the rice when it's cooked. So I'm just going to cut it in half, and that exposes the beautiful, sweet seeds that are inside. Take the cut pomegranate and hold it over your fingers like that. My fingers are going to be slightly open, just like that, and tap it like that. And the seeds will be released from the little paper-like cage they sit in. So that's pretty much it, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, we've extracted pretty much every seed out of the pomegranate. I'm going to use half of the pomegranate on the rice just for sprinkling over. So it's not just for decorative purposes. They're there because they taste delicious and they have a sweet juiciness to them, which is completely wonderful. So this, I'll wrap in a little bit of plastic foam, put it in the fridge, and tomorrow morning that gets sprinkled on the porridge, and that makes a really delicious breakfast. Also optional, but which will be lovely today, is a little more coriander. Flat parsley would be delicious here, or mint would be really good as well. But we'll keep with the coriander theme just for the moment. Rice is cooking nicely. Just a little look to make sure nothing dramatic is going wrong, which it isn't. Just simmering, that's cooking at perfect temperature. Lid back on. Don't take the lid off for any length of time, just to have a little look in, because you don't want the liquid to evaporate too quickly. So it's about waiting until all of the stock is absorbed into the rice rather than letting it evaporate because you haven't left the lid on the saucepan. The rice has been cooking for 15 minutes, so let's have a look and see what's happening. It should be cooked, and that's a good sign because we've trapped the steam in there. That's important. Now, all of our liquid has evaporated, and we have the lovely loose grains of rice, and the butter will have brought its own little bit of extra flavor to the equation. So that's it, basically ready to serve now. You can serve it just like that with nothing else. We're going to go a bit further today with our coriander and pomegranate. I'm going to fold the coriander through, and our salt in this recipe we've put in with the stock, so rice should be just perfectly seasoned. That's pretty enough. I think I'll keep the last few little seeds there with my other half for my breakfast for tomorrow morning. And that will be really, really delicious then to serve with the casserole roast chicken with the Indian spices. A perfect accompaniment, really. Pan frying is a really important technique. We use it so often in the kitchen, whether you're cooking a little bit of chicken or maybe a lamb chop or a steak, or like I'm going to do now, cook a piece of beautiful fresh fish. This is a piece of lovely fresh cod. It could be a piece of salmon or brill or turbot. It doesn't matter as long as it's lovely and fresh. So when you're pan frying, you need a pan, obviously, and I'm using a nice heavy cast iron pan here, and I've already got it on a low heat, so it's starting to heat up, because it's very important when you're pan frying anything that the ingredient goes onto a hot pan. That's essential. If it doesn't go onto a hot pan, the chances are that it will actually stick on you and you'll get into trouble with it. So because I'm using a piece of fish, I sometimes like to dip the fish into a little of what we call seasoned flour. So this is flour that has some salt and pepper just sprinkled into it. Dip the fish into the flour, and I'm just patting off the excess flour. So it's not a big, thick coating of flour. It's almost imperceptible at this stage. And the other really important thing about pan frying, apart from having the pan nice and hot and preheating, is I like to put the fat I'm using directly onto the ingredient, not into the pan. That way you use much less fat. So just smearing the butter on like that. I promise you, if you put the butter into the pan in this instance, you'll use 3 or 4 times the amount that I've used here. Here, the butter, when it hits the hot pan, will brown. That's it. There's no superfluous butter that's just sort of sitting around the edges of the pan burning. Any bit of butter you're using here is working for you and also giving you delicious flavor. Just take the ingredient and tip it like that on the edge of the pan, and now I know that that pan is hot enough because you heard the sizzle. If I did that and there was no noise like that, I'd wait a few minutes longer or a few seconds longer until the pan was hot enough. So plonk it in. Okay, a little bit of smoke straight away. When you're pan frying, you need to see a little bit of smoke. If you don't, your heat isn't hot enough. And the butter we have used is just going to brown the surface of the fish. No superfluous butter, so that should be lovely. Don't play with it. Give it time for a crust to develop. Again, we're talking about the sweet juices that are coming out of the fish, being drawn out by the heat, hitting the hot pan and becoming a lovely brown surface. And just lift it up at the edge like that and have a little look in. And I can tell that that's getting nice and golden, but I'm going to give it maybe another minute because colour is equal to flavour. I'm not going to do anything fancy with this when I'm serving it. All I'm going to do is just sprinkle a little bit of parsley on top of it and serve it with a lemon wedge. We were happy a few moments ago that it was just starting to golden. So just good scrape like that and turn it over. I'm also going to put a little bit of extra salt and pepper on. So that's cooking away there. Fairly sort of gentle heat, same sort of level as we've been cooking from the very beginning. A little bit of smoke coming, partly steam as well as smoke at this stage. I'm going to serve just a very little simple chopped parsley with this. I've got some flat parsley here. I also have curly parsley. Now, gather your parsley together like that, okay? And then just go backwards and forwards over the parsley. This is like a rocking horse motion. There should be none of that going on. That's not going to achieve good chopped parsley. What is a silent, rhythmic movement like that. And you'll note that my fingers, the lower joint where my nails are, is tucked in. They're just tucked in. So they're out of the way of the blade. The middle joint, along here, my knife slides up and down along. So it's relatively safe. So parsley is chopped, ready to go. Wedge of lemon, very simple but very effective. And then a little herb to go with it. We have chopped parsley for sprinkling over, so I could absolutely use a sprig of that flat parsley to serve with it. But I've lovely coriander here, and which is just coming into flour, and coriander and fish works beautifully together. So just to sort of freshen it up a little bit and give a little bit of extra interest when we're eating this, I'm going to put the coriander leaves on. Let's check and see if our fish is cooked. How do we know if our fish is cooked? So generally speaking, it should have an appearance of being cooked about it, and it's fair to say that this fish has an appearance of being cooked. I'm going to turn the heat off underneath it because I think it's pretty much there. So just have a little look in, and it should no longer look opaque. So, happy that the fish is now cooked. So, lift it off. Great thing about these cast iron pans is that you can scrape them a little bit, whereas if you're using a non-stick pan, you're always a little bit nervous about that. Very simply then, little parsley on top, just to give it a little fresh taste put it on the fish, that's where you need it, not sprinkled on the plate. And then pretty much straight to the table with that. A little baked tomato, a green salad, boiled new potato, or just as it is. You can decide yourself if you want to put another bit of butter on, or maybe a tiny drizzle of oil, but it should be really good to eat. And it's such an important technique, and a technique you use irregardless of whether you're using fish, meat, poultry. This will really stand to you.